This is Cleoni from IamCleoni.com. I am here at the APC Ministries, my church, with my pastor. Pastor, please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Pastor Castro, the pastor of Apostolic Pentecostal Church of Pickering, and I'm delighted, of course, to be the shepherding host for Cleoni, and pleased to be with her and all of you today.
Wonderful. So we're pretty much going to use this interview to talk about mental illness, especially from the church perspective. So I have a few questions that I have for my pastor, and it's a pretty informal meeting. So hope you enjoy exactly his responses, and let's get to it. So number one, why is it important to bring more awareness to mental illness, especially in the church?
Well, mental illness it's just another illness that affects any individual, any race, any age, and the church is a microcosm of people from our community in all walks of life. And so if cancer is a part of the church, or diabetes as a part of humanity, mental illness is the same. Nevertheless, I believe there's a stigma attached to mental illness, and not only to mental illness in the community, but also in the church, because of some ill-perceived ideas. For example, Christians should never have mental illness. So it creates a much more complicated issue, and in the church sometimes people come for refuge and acceptance, and when they meet this, if they're dealing with a mental illness, it can create more shame and hiding, and that's not what the church should be. It should be a place of acceptance to deal with all these issues. So the awareness is absolutely necessary so that we can become much more equipped to deal with the whole man, not just the body and the spirit, but the emotional aspect of humanity, or any part of humanity for that matter, that goes through an ailment.
So the second question I have is, many times in the church, people perceive mental illness as a demonic possession. How do you think church members could be better informed and equipped to be able to maybe discern between whether something is actually a physical manifestation of a mental illness versus a demonic or spiritual manifestation of something else?
Right. Very good question. While mental illness is still in the scientific world a continued study, there are several factors that I think the church has carried tremendous misconceptions about in general, and it is labeling all mental illness as demonic possession. And that's not so. While demonic possession, of course, deals with the body, the mind, and the soul, it's an evil spirit taking control of the mind of the individual, and the body, of course, will manifest in very strange and unrealistic ways. Mental illness can become an avenue if someone is mentally ill for demonic possession, but not all mental illness is demonic possession. And so discerning is absolutely necessary, and the church must understand and work with the medical personnel. The church is not anemic or lacking in power if they work with medical personnel or medicine. Laughter is as good as a medicine. Therefore, medicine has an active and good component for the health and the healing of the body. So in dealing with mental illness, one needs to understand and notice the strange or the different behaviors that may be an onset, and understand that these things can be de-escalated with proper care, good diagnosis, and proper treatment. Demonic possession, on the other hand, it is not necessary. It cannot be cured by medicine. It is a spiritual thing, and in that case, proper discerning is necessary, prayer is necessary, and very often these people can just snap right out of that to soberness with a miraculous touch from the Lord, and that's been done over and over.
Wonderful. I also wanted to add to that, because you made some really great points, more about medication. Sometimes it is perceived in the church that medication is not something that you should take for a mental illness, that you can just pray. And I totally believe in having faith and prayer that God can do anything and heal any sickness. But what are your views on medication and mental illness, and yeah, I'd just love to know what you think.
I think, as I said before, the scripture says laughter is as good as a medicine, and of course that's a comparative statement. Laughter is good, but medicine is a standard of the good that the scripture alludes to. Obviously, therefore, then medication has its place. And so while we would promote a lifestyle that promotes health, healthy eating, healthy hygiene mentally, reading the right things, meditating on the right thing, proper sleep habits, exercise, and all of that to facilitate full health. If someone is mentally sick in the church, prayer is not the only cure. Many miracles were done in the scripture, but the scripture says there are many people who were prayed for even in the days of Elijah, and they weren't all healed. And so the wisdom of God in giving mankind the ability to through science, God's an omniscient God. He is the author of all science, and it can be abused, of course. But from that standpoint, we've seen many people who were sick and with mental illness that were prayed for all over the world, were not healed, and through medical and therapeutic approach, they're living healthy, sober, fulfilled life. And so I recommend that if someone is diagnosed with a mental illness and they're getting proper treatment, medical treatment, that they work along with their physician and live a fulfilled life.
Wonderful. And the next question I have is, why do you think it's important for people with a mental illness to share their stories, or in this case, sometimes their testimonies?
I think light always triumphs darkness, and the more people are in darkness about a particular subject, is the more spooky it seems, and the more misconceptions prevail. And what we want to do is to remove misconception that mental illness is not different from someone with a broken leg or someone diagnosed with cancer or any other disease that they'd want to care for. The mind just seems to have an illness to it. And so it is important that we share these testimonies to overcome the obstacles, bring education to people, both in the church, in the law enforcement sector, in the medical field, in the counseling field, in relational fields, so that the sufferer or the person going through that illness is not seen as a mentally ill person, but as a person first and foremost with an illness. And when we can develop that sense of compassion, then we can advocate better, we can treat better, we can care better, and problems will be solved in a much more efficient way.
Awesome. And the next question I have is, why do you think Happy Home 42, the talk show to raise awareness for mental illness, would be a great initiative for this province, for our church, for the city?
Well, of course, I want to commend you, Cleoni, for the visionary work that you're doing. I think it's a groundbreaking step that you're taking, and I commend you for your courage, for your confidence. And I'm almost saddened that we had to say courage, because it seemed courageous to step out because you struggled with this issue and now trying to deal with it, when nowadays there is no shame about anything. Mm-hmm. And so for there to be a stigma or a shame, or to be calling it courageous to step out, it goes to show how badly miseducated we are on the subject, and how fearful we are on the subject. Mm-hmm. But I do think what you've done at Happy Home 42, it is in launching this, it's an amazing tool for any individual or family, community of people dealing with humanity. And this is going to be showing up somewhere, because stats do show that probably 1 in 20 individuals in Canada will deal with mental illness. So this is helping all of us knowing how to care better and to cure ourselves mm-hmm. of our phobias and fears, and all of that makes us incapable of helping those that may be afflicted with this illness. Mm-hmm.
You know, actually the stat is actually even more greater. It's actually 1 in 5. It's 20%.
20%.
Yeah.
20%.
So even when I heard that statistic, I was very shocked, because at first, when I was going through a mental illness, through my process, I always felt very alone, and just reading that stat that it's actually that much more common. I'm hoping that we'll be able to let people see that actually mental illness is pretty common, and people are not alone.
Yeah.
So.
And I think the appeal is for further studies and further education and further awareness measures to be taken on all levels of both the church or government or in the fields of seeing what can be done for better treatment, because very often mental illness is a left behind illness in finances and in allocation for research and studies. And so I think what you're doing is an amazing thing, to lend a voice to everyone who may be suffering in silence, that there are many people out there and it's not a shame, and the stigma should be lifted, and we're hoping that more help and cure can be provided even through this means.
Perfect. So final thing is, do you have any final comments, anything you want to say, maybe about me?
Well, of course, I think Cleoni is a very resilient person with a tremendous vision, and I think my final words would be to anyone that will tune in, hear, or see this, consider supporting with your prayers and with your finances, because she's endeavoring to launch a program that is going to be helping families living a much better life, and churches and homes and individuals live better lives. So I would recommend hearty support to Cleoni and this endeavor.
Wonderful. Well, this is Cleoni Crawford from IamCleoni.com signing off. Take care and God bless.
God bless.